Welcome back. You're with Face the Nation. We'll start off the third round with senior attorney at law, Mr. Gomin Dashri. Ms. Dashri, issuing a report last year in the year 2016, the World Bank says that effective leadership is needed to steer Sri Lanka forward. Do you think there is leadership? If I ask you, who is the boss? Would you be able to answer that question?
That's a very difficult question. That's a teaser. Because I myself don't know the boss. I don't know who considers him who as the boss. I don't know the two bosses treat each other on equal ground. I mean, undoubtedly, constitutionally, still the president is the number one. But is he effective because it's a president who doesn't have the support of a parliament? The support is elsewhere with the prime minister. Now, prime minister is running his own show while the president is running a different show. Now, what is important, I think, is that I think we should change both the prime minister and the opposition leader, because if you ask me, when it comes to very important critical matters, they act in unison. I mean, bonds came, what has the opposition done, what has other people done, what has I think Sirasa and media, TV1 has, people like Mr. Rusiripala, Mr. Vijayawardena have done a yeoman service in that. What has the opposition's leader done? So I think we got to have a change. Now, may I take you back a few years ago? I remember very well, the only time when bribery and corruption was effective, when MPs were removed, was when Mrs. Bandaranaike twice removed MPs. And not only did she have remove MPs, she had by-elections immediately thereafter. She had a Bandarola by-election. Her member lost. Her party lost that seat. Mr. Cyril Matthew won it. UNP won it. She was not afraid. And I remember very well the parliamentarian concerned begged of her, don't charge me. But she said she couldn't get 2 votes. So you need people. Mr. Dadli Sennaik, all DS Sennaik, we had integrity.
But don't you think, Ms. Dashri, that it is the judiciary itself that has paved the way for this situation? I recollect a few years ago when Rohita Bogolagama was crossing over, and there was a court case in the court regarding his crossover. The Supreme Court at that time, which was headed by Chief Justice Arthur Silva, declared that it was okay to do this.
Undoubtedly, because constitution is crystal clear, you can't change. But now what do you? How do you stop that? Effectively stop that all levels.
But precedent has already been set.
Because what happens is they get injunctions. They can't have an inquiry. Now look, during Jia Jayawardena's time, how many MPs
mustn't the judiciary also be responsible for this current situation?
They had to. In the past, they were not responsible. Today, they are very much more responsible. Today, we have a commission. I think Mr. Vijayawardena gave evidence. The 3 judges, they are very effective people. I think that's the only way we can solve this problem. We have to have effective judges. Judges must have no fears. Judges must be impartial. Judges must not have political consideration. Judges must not be spoken. Those are very basic things that we have to do and get it right. Some of it is happening today, but many other areas, economic front, I don't think the people, especially the Prime Minister, I don't think he knows the woes of the people. He doesn't know what the market price is. I mean, that is where the problem is. People, judiciary, good governance are secondary. The most important thing is your stomach full, is your family reasonably, are they comfortable, have they proper education. Those basic needs are collapsing. That is
Ms. Dashri, with all this pessimism, I see a bit of optimism as well. So you think that the 3-member committee that has been appointed by the President will conclude their findings and ensure that justice is meted out as far as the central bank bond issue is concerned?
Very good question. I think you need time. You can't do it in a hurry. 6 months at least. 3 months is not sufficient. They can ask for an extension. They should ask and take it and give a good proper report. That will be absolutely one up for the judiciary, one up for the government. If they take not only action, they can take action now. That is very simple. When Mrs. Bandaranaike lost the civic rights, and the Supreme Court held that finding was incorrect. What did Jia Jayawardena do? He brought legislation. Never has it happened before. He brought legislation to squash the decision of Neville Samarakot. And what happened? They enforced it. So today they can enforce, though they say that what they can do is, once that report is there, if it's an acceptable report, don't throw it into the waste basket like the LLRC report. Everybody said it's a whitewash commission. Then what happened? It was supposed to be a jolly good report, and the government didn't implement it. So that we have people who can give reports. That was a good committee headed by the Attorney General, Mr. What was his name? I can't remember his name, but it was Mr. Palihakkar. There were good people on it.
Thank you very much.
But what's happening today is that let that report be there, and let's legislate on it and find the culprits and punish them immediately.
Thank you very much, Mr. Govindashri. One up for the government, one up for the legislature. Would that really happen is a question mark, and we will have to wait and see as to what will unfold in the next 3 months. What we see right now is, Mr. Tendukon, a nicely clad former governor of the central bank going in and out of the Presidential Commission, giving evidence, coming back, and then you have his lawyers voicing their opinion as well. Several meetings were held to closed doors, saying that this is very sensitive information and cannot be given out to the media. In all this, do you see any optimism?
Well, I think the government is moving very cautiously in this matter, and they are given a lot of, I think, liberty to the people, the accused, the charged people, to prove themselves not guilty, so it doesn't matter, because the way that the commission is conducting itself, and how the evidence is led, and how they are digging into the matter is, from my point of view, I think it is not bad. It is satisfactory.
Now,
it is satisfactory.
Mr. Tendukon, I'm going to ask you somewhat of a legal question. I want to question Mr. Dashri as well in a minute, but not yet, Mr. Dashri. I want to question Mr. Tendukon first on this. Never has there been a case to prove intention. You can't prove intention in a financial irregularity. It's quite difficult, and this is quite evident. It has not happened in the Sri Lankan history. So the governor of the central bank's intention to provide this information to his son-in-law, if that was the case, is going to be very difficult to prove. And this is the reason that this case has not yet been proven black and white. Do you think that justice will be meted out in a case like this?
I don't know whether it has boiled down to the situation of proving an intention at that point like that, because it has a more wider scope than that as far as we can see, because the matters that have come to light about the central bank bond issue, there is a lot of information that it has been a planned affair from stage one. From the very stage that it was announced, there has been a plan to perpetrate a crime. That is the observations that we can make about this matter. The very appointment of the governor to the central bank, the manner in which he has been directed by people in authority in the country to change policies without going through the normal channels, the way how he has passed or taken steps using his office position to accommodate somebody to benefit in an undue manner, all these things they are not intentions, they are really commitments which are visible. They are coming to light one by one.
So you mean to say that this will not be swept under the carpet?
No, it cannot be. It cannot be. Actually, the verdict has been given by the public in this country. We are only waiting for a official, authenticate verdict. That's all. The people of the country have already passed the verdict. They know that there has been a blatant robbery in the central bank. They know that it has been planned by the top politicians, inclusive of top politicians in the country, and they have got together to do this, and the results are seen. The people are now maneuvering the monies, manipulating with the monies that they have earned like illegitimately. These are all obvious, visible things. People know this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rusirpal Tandakon. But before I move to Dr. W. Vijayawardena, a very quick question to you on this bond matter. The former governor of the central bank, what if he says that I did not do this? I was instructed to do it, because he initially said for a English daily that he was instructed to do it by the Prime Minister.
Yeah, he will be dealt with accordingly, according to the gravity of that offence, you see.
So do you think that the Prime Minister will be summoned to the Presidential Commission?
It's like somebody saying, well, somebody gave me a knife and asked me to stab, so I did it. So he also has a role to play there.
So do you think that the Prime Minister will be summoned to the Presidential Commission?
Well, if evidence is led to that extent, the Commission should convene. Now they convened a member of the COPE committee, Dr. Harsha De Silva, yesterday, I think today. Today they called. There is no limit. I think our Prime Minister is not above the law. If Prime Minister has had anything to do, and if the Commission feels so, I think it's nothing but right for the Prime Minister to be called before that Commission.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rusirpal Tandakon, for your thoughts as well. I now move my attention to an individual, Dr. W. Vijayawardena, who also appeared before.
What Mr. Rusirpal said, I think the aspect
very quickly,
one second. He did not speak about the cover-up. Who did the cover-up? That's where intention will be clearly visible. Intention, who did the cover-up?
Thank you very much, Mr. Ashwin.
That is where intention is clear, comes out crystal clear.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ashri. Mr. Ashri, I sometimes wonder, when you go to court, it's going to be very difficult for the judge to control you, is it? But it's all in good faith. Thank you very much, Mr. Ashri, as always, for sharing your views, even interrupting. He makes it a point to put some important thoughts to the conversation that we are having. Thank you very much, Mr. Ashri. And I now move my attention to Mr. W.A. Vijayawardena, Dr. W. Vijayawardena, former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. He also appeared before the Presidential Commission of Inquiry, however, as an expert witness. None has really spoken to you about what evidence you gave. Just give us a background. You were there at the Commission for how many days, Dr. Vijayawardena?
There were 4 days, yes.
4 days, and give us a summary as to what you testified before the Commission.
I don't know whether I am authorized to make that statement here in public, Shamir, because I was advised not to appear before the media and tell them whatever that has taken place at the Commission, because it can be used against the evidence that I have given. So okay,
let me rephrase that question to you. What went wrong with the bond scam?
Bond scam, of course, several things. I mean, when the bond scam, in fact, when the particular bond was issued on that particular day, 27th of February 2015, the decision had been made around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. By 3 o'clock, the entire market was aware of it.
So now, it's very clear that this information is there black and white.
It's black and white. I mean,
now my question is very simple, Dr. Vijayawardena. If that is the case, why isn't the authorities taking action now? Why can't the public go to the courts and say, okay, there has been a discrepancy, this is our money, we have to ensure that our money is protected, we are paying this sum in a period of 30 years, why can't they do it? It's in black and white, you say it's in black and white. Mr. Rusirpal Tandakon says it's in black and white. We're just doing the investigations now to prove who is guilty, and Mr. Gominda Ashri, senior attorney at law, is saying we have to now understand who did the cover-up, and then the intention will automatically come through. So you're saying this is in black and white. If that is the case, why such a long time?
Well, immediately after had the government taken action, Samir, when because the whole market was agitated by about 3 o'clock in the afternoon that day, because I also got an SMS to the effect that such and such irregularity has taken place in the treasury bond issue. So as the members of the good governance government that was in power, they would have immediately taken action. But that particular action was not taken, because that is where we made the mistake. But by the time it had taken place, Shamir, the president was not in Sri Lanka, he was in China. He has very correctly instructed the Prime Minister to appoint a committee. of inquiry, and the Prime Minister also appointed a committee of inquiry. And that report was also submitted, but of course many people are saying that that report is bad.
May I kindly interrupt Dr. Vijayawardena for a...
I'll come back to you immediately. I'll come back to you for sure.
Just at this point,
very quickly. You
know, the strange thing happened. The committee of inquiry was, according to the statement made by the Prime Minister to Parliament, was appointed the same day, 27th of February. This is not my statement. This is the recorded statement of the Prime Minister.
Yes, Dr. John.
Yeah, and in fact, if somebody examines in very closely the recommendations made by the committee, the committee itself has said this warrants further examination, and no action was taken. And finally, what happened was the media took it up, and the market took it up, and civil society organizations took it up, and as a result the government could no longer suppress it. But of course when the second committee report was submitted to Parliament, and when it was to be debated in Parliament, the President very correctly decided to appoint this Presidential Commission of Inquiry, and now it is sitting, and we have to, as Mr. Gominda says, we have to wait until the release of the report by the Presidential Commission.
Now my second question to you, Dr. Vijayawardena. Everyone is talking about the 27th February 2015 bond. None is talking about the 2016 bond, which was equally bad.
No, they are talking. I mean, both.
Both bond scams in consideration at this Presidential Commission of Inquiry?
Yeah, it's not only that, Shamir. From 27th February 2015 till about middle of April 2016, there had been a series of inappropriate treasury bond issues where one party had benefited at the cost of the Employees Provident Fund, Employees Trust Fund, and Sri Lanka Insurance Corporation, and also National Savings Bank. And all these things will come to light when the final Presidential Committee report is out. It's not only two, there have been series.
So you mean to say that not only the 27th February bond scam, but all the bond issuances in between that took place between 2015 February, 2016 April will be investigated by this commission?
Exactly.
Thank you very much for that information.
One reference, please.
Yes.
You see, I think Sirasa gets a lot of credit for opening all these issues of the bond scam. I don't think both Financial Times and Sirasa should be applauded by the public. You see, Shamil, it is opening things out to the public that they know, they realize, and then they come back strongly. But if you remember, when there was another commission, the Commission into Human Rights Violations, Sirasa broadcast everything on television right through the day. If you did the same for bond scam, I think you would have done a great service to the country.
No, thank you very much.
Not permitted. Now that is bad.
Thank you very much.
It was permitted the last time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Govinda Ashri. At the end of the day, we as a network do not want to take the credit for such action. It's you, the public, who has steered us, who has stood behind us, and we report based on your wish, because I remember on the 8th of January 2015 when we had the election broadcast, on the 9th of January when the President was announced, Chandana Surya Bandara, Kandeep and I said something very vocally. We said that we will always stand by you, the public. So let me open the floor for questions from our journalists. So let's start off with Chaturanga.
Thank you, Sham. We have moved on from the topic of the cabinet reshuffle. I want to take Mr. Tennakoon's attention back to the situation and ask you a question. You mentioned about the Ministry of Highways and Higher Education being amalgamated together, rather. That was due to this promise made to keep the cabinet ministers between 35 in the the election manifestos of the main candidates. But we saw it happening at the cabinet reshuffle as well. Minister of Vocational Training, Skills Development and Kandyan Heritage. There is a Minister of Cultural Affairs on the side as well. So what are we going to? What is our future course?
That is exactly what I was telling previously, that this distribution of these portfolios in the functions in the portfolios was a matter, I mean, quite unprecedentedly the things have been changed. Like what was mentioned here, there are 3 or 4 ministers who are in charge of development in this country. Then there are the foreign investment, then various functions that were falling within one ministry have been now divided into 3 or 4. It's not a question of reduce the number of ministers that they have done it for something else which is not seen by us, for some other reason. If it is for that purpose, of course they could have allocated it to the education minister, no? Higher education and education. Why highways? So therefore,
financial gains?
Quite, I know, something unseen, you know, which we cannot explain.
But Mr. Nuko, you see that happening in this reshuffle as well. Foreign Affairs, Minister of Finance and Media. Quite a mismatch.
Definitely.
Occasional training and Canadian heritage.
Definitely. So therefore, this distribution of functions of the ministries and those various subjects falling within the portfolios is a matter that has been confused from the beginning of this government. It continues.
Mr. Dayasri, who decides this amalgamation? Who decides on this? Who has what ministry and what is together?
Whose advice?
I don't know who is deciding, but honestly, I think both the Prime Minister and the President have to take the rap.
Has this happened in the country before? Has there been these amalgamated ministries before in other governments?
The fusion is something that we have always had to live with, and that is because people are tolerant. I mean, it's good that people voice their opposition, and that is why I blame the people also in this, because if they are more vigilant, if they are more vocal, if they come up with the necessary protests, I mean, look at it. People think that just because get 300,000 people on a May Day rally, that a government can be changed. But do you realize that 300,000 people is just 3 constituencies in Colombo, when we have 198 constituencies in the country? Yes. So you know, these are all cosmetic compacts. So that one must really look at the live issues, and I think if people are alive to these issues.
People are alive. We can see matters like this amalgamation of ministries being discussed on social media. We can see what Shamir mentioned, the fact regarding the appropriations for new vehicles being brought in, discussed on social media. Well, that is the extent that the public can go to. What else can the public do?
Well, the trouble is, the most important occasion is the election day. Now, election day, the local government elections are not being held at all. The other elections, people must then, as they did last time and several times before, they can peacefully walk to the poll and change the government. But the thing is, have they got a better option? Have they got options? Because they have been living with the same people.
Forget about options. They don't even have elections.
That's right. Precisely the point. They don't have elections to exercise the option.
What provision is there within the law of this country for a citizen who feels that he is aggrieved by the failure to hold elections?
Yes, citizen may have difficulties, but there are very powerful commissions now. What is the election commission doing about it? Are they making noise about it? If they
but the elections commissioner says that, look, until the minister in charge says hold the election, I can't really do anything about it.
Well, he can certainly pressurize the government. He can walk out of the cabinet. That will be the most effective pressure he can use. But he sits there and says different things at different times.
No, but the commissioner doesn't sit in the cabinet.
No, I'm not saying the minister. I'm saying minister also says he can hold elections, but he doesn't hold. Now the commission, we have a commission, 3-man commission.
It seems that both of the parties that are in government don't want to hold elections, be it the SLFP or the UNP.
Yes, because they don't have confidence. Now that is why I said Mrs. Bandaranaike held elections on time, lost elections after sacking her own MP for bribery and corruption.
But isn't it illegal to deny this basic function of democracy? You hold an election. When the term is up, you hold elections. Isn't that illegal? Isn't there some clause, some article, some in the constitution, some section in some law which says if you do not hold the elections on time, that you can be held accountable? Because it's authoritarian not to hold elections.
If you ask me, legally it is possible. You can get a mandamus compelling the Commission of Elections to hold elections according to law. You can get a mandamus to say that a person who has dual citizenship must be ousted. But then what happens is, so many parties in the political scene today will lose several MPs. I'm told one particular party which is in the opposition might lose all their members. They might lose their leader of the opposition. I don't know. This is what people talk. But that kind of loose talk also will not take place if the laws are enacted and carried out.
Dr. Vijayawardena, one minute, sure. Dr. Vijayawardena, we was talking earlier about the role of the new magic trio on finance and economic affairs. Minister Mangala Samaraveera, State Minister Ran Wickramaratne, and Deputy Minister of Economic Affairs Dr. Harsha De Silva. We were talking about the bond controversy earlier. What will be their role in dealing with the bond controversy? What should be their role in your opinion?
Well, in fact, it's the Minister of Finance who has to take notice of the bond issue, Nadim, because it is who has lost the revenue to the government of Sri Lanka. And if there's a fraud of say even 100 rupees to the government, government always takes it very seriously, and the people who have done that, they are dealt with disciplinary in terms of the government's disciplinary code. So the Minister of Finance cannot remain after the bond report has been issued. If the report has found that there's an impropriety in the bond issue, he has to take action, and I am pretty sure that he will take that action.
In the meantime, until the Commission of Inquiry's work is completed, what can the Minister or the State Minister?
Well, so far the institutions that should come within the Ministry of Finance have not been gazetted, Nadim. Therefore, we don't know under whose purview the central bank would be gazetted. Right now, the central bank is still with the
Ministry of National Policies and Economic Affairs.
But if the central bank is brought back to the Ministry of Finance, the due home of the central bank, then of course the Minister of Finance can take action on that.
Mr. Tennakoon, do you think it is likely that the central bank will be brought under the Ministry of Finance once again and out of the Ministry of National Policies and Economic Affairs? It's a speculative question.
It's not an impossible thing, but with a little pressure, yes, possible. Even this change of the portfolios, I don't think that they willingly did it. There definitely has been some kind of pressure in this, and that they yielded to that pressure. So with such pressure mounting, it's not impossible.
Do you think that that pressure should be mounted?
It should be. It should be. It should be.
And why?
The Finance Ministry should have that sanctity that it had earlier, having under its own roof all the bodies, authorities and the departments that it used to have. That is the best forum. That is the best forum. Today, one of the most important functions for the Finance Ministry is to completely look into the state-owned banks. If they really look into the functioning of the state-owned banks, there will be a lot for the Auditor General to comment on. Very much more than what he has already commented on the central bank.
Dr. Vijayawardena, when you take a look at this year alone, we've seen over 4 times of supplementary budget estimates coming into play to buy vehicles for parliamentarians, ministers, state officials. Do we have the money for this?
No, we don't have.
Then how can a government not forecast this and start buying vehicles for ministers, parliamentarians and officials?
For example, from say around middle of 2015 till the end of 2016, the government has borrowed a massive amount from the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, about 250 billion Sri Lanka rupees. And what has happened is, when the government doesn't earn enough revenue to meet all those commitments the government has given through supplementary budget estimate, it has to borrow. If it doesn't borrow from the public, they have to borrow from the central bank. But when they borrow from the central bank, there is a long-term adverse consequence, because we are printing money, and that money will go into the hands of the members of the public, and they will demand goods and services, and when the goods and services are in short supply, the prices will start going up. It has already started, because around say early 2015 the inflation rate in Sri Lanka was close to 0, but today end of April it has gone up to 8%.
Ms. Dashri, interesting thoughts by Dr. W. Jabardana on the vehicle issue. We don't have money. I recollect just a week ago the cabinet deciding that the supplementary budget estimates that was put forward to buy approximately around 5 vehicles for a state official and a few others have been cancelled. The point is very simple. It shouldn't have even come to the discussion table. It shouldn't have been brought to the parliament because we didn't have the money. Isn't that the case?
That is the case, but it's who's advising whom? There are officials, very high officials. They live and earn and live better on perks and perquisites. They don't want to. You see what has happened today is people, when they get perks, unlike salaries, they don't want to lose the perks. Perks are better than salaries and allowances. So to maintain it, they have to play. They have to be cheerleaders to the politicians.
One of your colleagues, also a parliamentarian, is on this
I'm
list.
really blaming the bureaucrats at this stage, because bureaucrats lost this position because of Colvin R. De Silva's constitution in 1970. Mr. Vijayawardena made a reference, Article 55, that made the political authority over and above the public servants, the administrative service. We had a fairly clean administrative service, fairly effective administrative service. They were made pawns, and that was because here was a leftist leader. Everybody applauded him, but I think he committed an absolute crime against this society by bringing the political authority. The first reaction was, can you remember the number of liquor licenses that were given? Who made money out of those liquor licenses? How many court cases were filed by people when they didn't, when the liquor license was withdrawn? What happened? None of those things happened when public servants were distributing liquor licenses. Excise department.
Dr. Vijayawardena, again the point is the cabinet decides not to import these vehicles in question at a last week cabinet meeting. However, little do they know that letters of credit has been issued. So are they trying to hoodwink the people again? Because when you issue LC, it's very clear.
That you have said that the LCs have been opened, there's no effect in cancelling the importation of this vehicle, because the vehicles are now coming anyway. But of course what matters to us, Shamir, is that even at the time the government took over in January 2015, they were aware that the country's financial situation was not in a very good shape. So I expected the Minister of Finance to make a public announcement saying that we are in a bad shape and we are not going to use any new vehicles, and there are enough vehicles already available in the country, and all these vehicles will be used by the existing political leaders and the bureaucracy. But that particular announcement was not made, and instead they were going by the principle that the enough revenue can be generated or they can borrow money from outside. And as a result, what has happened is during the last 2-year period, the situation has become worse.
All this is a farce, isn't it, Mr. Tendakon? They say that, you know, we'll cancel the importation of vehicles, no vehicles for this year, but LCs have been issued. Any like-minded person would know that a letter of credit means a guarantee of payment.
From day one, it was a farce, Shamir. You know, it was a statement and a pronouncement of austerity for the whole country, was very much in need at that stage, because they themselves saw the state of the economy. But did they do that? Instead of pronouncing austerity, they went for an extravaganza, a total extravaganza. The two poles, extreme poles. So therefore this government cannot just hide behind the fact by just postponing the agony like, you know, no, we are not getting the cars. It's definitely a farce. The cars have been ordered, LCs have been opened, and they will come. As you rightly said, somebody will have to clear them. And who is going to clear them? Not you and I. The people who open the LCs will do that.
Now, I wonder,
who are they? They are the public servants. I mean, they should be advising the government correctly and properly. Instead of that, they probably get a car on the same footing.
Now, on Sunday, a newspaper reported that a reshuffled deputy minister, who has now taken notes in another ministry, wanted the vehicles assigned to him. I don't know how far this is true, but the vehicles assigned to him be taken to the new ministry that he is at, and the particular ministry in question, I don't want to name the ministry obviously for obvious reasons, because this charge is not proven, has said that no, we can't do that because we have to allocate it for the newcomer who's coming on board.
we have ministers. We have
somewhat a laughable affair.
We have ministers in this country who claim to carry the photograph that is hung in his office, to use the car, to use the well-furbished apartment or the house that was used by a minister who was very, very extravagant to himself. Like that, these are like, children fighting over things, This is what we are seeing today. Instead of pronouncing for the whole country some principled stands by the people who make the law, who decide, who are in the legislature, they are fighting among themselves for little perks. What a pity it is.
Dr. Vijayavardhana, according to media reports, the economic loss of the recent twin disaster, the floods and landslide, a rough estimate is around 30 billion rupees. Now, as a former deputy governor of the central bank and an economist, what is the impact of this disaster on our economy? Because it's already debt burden. Will it have an impact on our growth prospects, exports?
Yeah, definitely, Charita, because I don't know how far this information is correct about the estimate of 30 billion. If it is correct, the government has to allocate 30 billion out of its funds now, and the government doesn't have 30 billion with it, because main reason, Charita, is that even though the constitution provides for the establishment of a contingency fund to meet this kind of disasters, Sri Lanka has a contingency fund without money, without resources. So therefore it is the either current taxpayers or the future taxpayers, because if the government borrows this money, future taxpayers, so if the government borrows money from the central bank, again the whole citizens of the country, because the inflation will go up, they have to bear the full burden of the current disaster. And what matters is whenever such a natural disaster on the scale it has taken place in the recent floods has happened in any country, there is a negative impact on the overall economic growth. That cannot be denied. But of course, since this has been isolated into certain pockets and certain areas, it doesn't affect the entire economy, and as a result we may still be able to maintain an economic growth rate of between 4 and 4.5% in 2017 and beyond.
Now, we already have an insurance cover, right? The National Insurance Disaster and Emergency Relief Insurance cover. So does that mean most of these costs will be absorbed by insurance, or how do other countries absorb this kind of shock?
Even though there's the insurance cover, Charita, the insurance fund doesn't have enough resources to meet the total obligations. At the end of the day, the Ministry of Finance will have to come forward and take the full burden, and when the Ministry of Finance takes the full burden, it will be definitely, it's a burden on the entire society. What happens in other countries is, because they have set up these contingency funds in order to meet these kind of disasters, and they will meet out of them, or they will tax people. For example, you may recall about 4 years ago in Australia, there had been a huge storm which had destroyed the entire Gold Coast and Queensland area. What the Australian government did was, they got the public to pay additional taxes, so that by raising money out of additional taxes, the government was able to rehabilitate the entire area. So likewise, there are various options available, but in the case of Sri Lanka, since the government of Sri Lanka doesn't have good financial background, the options available to government of Sri Lanka are very limited, except borrowing from the Central Bank of Sri Lanka.
Charth, I just want to add something to this.
There's one other situation that may be interesting to you.
Yes.
If you remember, we never experienced a tsunami. Tsunami was never an insurance cover that we had obtained.
We didn't even know the word
We didn't
tsunami.
know about it. We had earthquake, we had storm, various things, but never did we have. But Sri Lanka has a policy of reinsuring. Now, most of them at the insurance corporations was reinsured in Japan, and they have been paying the Japanese over the years, for maybe 20, 30, 40 years, earthquake and all other similar kind of disasters. And when this happened, what did the Japanese do? They came and said, you don't have any tsunami cover, but we are paying everything.
Mr. Dashri, an interesting story about insurance covers. Are you aware that the National Insurance Trust Fund has not paid the premium for the reinsurance for this year, and therefore will not be getting paid sum of about 14 billion rupees, I believe.
There's a very serious matter because at that time insurance corporation paid all the money and they gave a total cover, and other reinsurers had to follow suit. So that is a genuine attempt where we pay and we are honorable, and that is why even debt collection.
When questioned about the failure to pay, the chairman of the NITF had said that well, Cabinet has granted approval.
But the point is,
just for your information.
Yeah, but for your information, insurance is useless for a country unless you have reinsurance outside.
Your insurance premium doesn't get paid simply because Cabinet approves it. You have to actually make
you have to pay it.
Mr. Dr. Vijayawardena, question to you. What happens to this foreign aid that is coming into the country? Lots of money coming into the country. When it was the tsunami, the people later on were not happy about how these funds were used. They said that it was sent to the former president's sister's account, and therefore, nothing happened. If I want to know what has happened to this money, the foreign aid that has come in from different countries, where do I go? Who do I write to?
In fact, Chaturanga, all the aid that we have received had to be centralized at the Ministry of Finance. Because if the Ministry of Finance is the purse keeper of the nation, and they have to maintain the accounts also. But it appears that money has gone into various places. For example, some of the aid has been received by the Minister of External Affairs. Some aid has been received by the President, and some other aid, the donations that have been given to Sri Lanka had gone to some other ministry. So what it happens is there is no coordinated effort by Sri Lanka to use this money and rehabilitate the people who have been affected by it, and as a result, I don't think you can get information from a single place.
Mr. Nikol, yes.
There's a correction to be made. The President has given a directive that all monies that is coming by way of aid has to be centralized and go into one account. Already the decision has been taken.
Right, because he said that he does not want to see a repetition of what happened in the Helping Mantra Fund, which was a major controversy in the year 2005.
There will be another Chief Justice who has to apologize later.
We're going for a short break. We're going for a short
years later.
Break. Stay connected, stay with Face the Nation, and when we come back, it's a final round. Welcome back. This is Face the Nation. We start off the final round with Dr. W. Vijayawardena, former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. Dr. Vijayawardena, have we missed the bus or not yet?
We have.
We have missed the bus. So what must we do now?
That's why I have suggested that the trio, Mangala Samaravira, Iran Vikramaratne, Harsa Silva, will have to get together, and they will have to act very fast since the time is running out, and they have to now consolidate the economic planning under them, and then they have to direct it to the country. So the action has to be taken by the minister, because there must be a policy owner, Shamir, because without a policy owner, whatever the policy that we would introduce will not be taken forward. And in this case, the government, if the government appoints these three people to serve as the agent of the government to carry this forward, then of course we may be able to make a start. But of course, as you may have already observed, Samir, for a country to come out of an economic crisis and then going forward, it takes about 5 to 6 years time, because in Sri Lanka the present situation is that if we take our exports, about 2/3 of the exports consist of garments which faces strict competition from Bangladesh, Myanmar and Cambodia, and we have not been able to compete with those countries because of the rising wages. And as a result, there's a necessity that we have to shift away from the focus on garments and develop new export avenues. It takes time. So probably after 2020, when a new government comes to power, that government will have to take forward whatever the economic plan that is being prepared today.
So do you think that there will be a change of regime, or will it be the same people running the show?
That's why I mean, when it comes to now, Mr. Usripal Tennakon also refers to that, when it comes to economic planning, Samir, it is absolutely necessary that we must build up consensus. So what should happen is that whatever the plan that is to be prepared by the present regime has to be marketed with all the other stakeholders, the whole other political parties. Potentially the alternative government will come from the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, and we'll have to get their consent to carry it forward. And without that, we will not be able to attain whatever the economic growth that we are planning for Sri Lanka for the next 2 to 3 decades.
Dr. Wijewardena, very quickly before I move to Mr. Gomin Dayasri, you know, in 2002 when the UNP government took over power, which was also something very similar, you had the president from a different party, you had the prime minister from a different party, and what happened there was the UNP took very strict economic policies. No jobs were given to the state sector, no very strict economic policies, because they were thinking of a 5-year plan. However, now it seems that the UNP does not have a proper economic policy. How dangerous is this for the forward march of the country?
This is highly dangerous, Shamir, because as I mentioned earlier, there must be a policy owner. Now, during this 2002 to 2004 period, the economic reform policy owner was Mr. Milinda Morogada, who was the Minister of Economic Enterprise or something. And it was he who carried it forward. Similar to that, under the present regime, there is a cabinet committee on economic management chaired by Prime Minister, and that particular committee just makes decisions. But the implementation part has to be done by a CEO who will take the ownership and who will carry it forward. So what is lacking today is that we don't have a policy owner, and as a result decisions are made but they are not implemented.
So you mean to say that because the UNP learned a lesson in the year 2002, because they lost the elections, the cabinet was dissolved by President Chandrika Kumar Tunga at that time, now they are just playing it fancy and based on the needs of the public?
In fact, what is to be done is there must be a proper communication with the members of the public, because if we do so, then they can get the consent of the members of the public.
Consensus is important. Thank you very much, Dr. Wijewardena, for joining us this evening and sharing your thoughts. I now move my attention to the very vocal Mr. Gomin Dayasri. I'm not going to stop you at 2 minutes for sure, Mr. Dayasri. I'm going to give you a bit more time. Good governance and the current cabinet reshuffle. Does it really reflect? I posed this question to you in my opening question, but you did not respond to it, so I'm posing it to you again. Good governance and the cabinet reshuffle. The time starts now.
I think it's not. It hasn't happened, and it won't happen again. This is the first time I have to disagree with Mr. Wijewardena. I did it before. I did it again. This tiny little combination of the finance minister and 3 others just won't work. You have to have change at the top, and that top, I refer both into the government and the opposition, Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe and Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa, have overstayed their limits of tolerance, and people are getting sick of all this. But they must change, and that change can only come through the people and through the media highlighting events, because there is consensus. Mr. Vijayawardhan says no consensus, there's consensus on both the government and opposition on bribery, corruption and misgovernance.
Where does the country stand in terms of good governance?
The stands because the people are stoic and the people can take up a lot of, and the economy is resilient. People will say economy will crash. No, it won't crash. But it's not going the right way. We got to put it right. And it can only, don't blame the politicians alone. Politicians have to take a lot of blame, but blame the bureaucrats, blame the people. People who matter, not the ordinary people, those people who have empty stomachs, but those who are enjoying perks, the business community has to take. They have to stand up. There were people like Mr. Lal Jayasundar who used to stand up to what is right and what is wrong. Today what did it do? Everybody, they put money into everybody's political contributions. No,
Sri Lanka is having a very resilient people. We have people who are very resilient.
I would say resilient economy and stoic people.
Resilient economy and stoic people. But I want you to remember that Sri Lankan people, at the end of the day, are very forgetful. They forget very quickly as to what they had to endure in a couple of months.
But you can't blame people. People keep moving. Remember Churchill, after winning the Second World War, was jettisoned by the people of Britain just as much. Mahinda Rajapaksa earned so much gratitude. He made himself a king, and the king had to fall down because people, their memory is short. Everything moves to history. People live for the moment, and they live on their tummy and the stomach and their families. So it's the home economy that matters first. Second, the national economy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Govindashri. You brought in a quote from Winston Churchill, so I thought I'll end your thoughts as well with a quote from Winston Churchill. He said, "Courage is what it takes to stand up and speak. Courage is also what it takes to sit down and listen." Probably this is the time that the government should really sit down and listen to the public of this resplendent nation. I now move my attention to Mr. Rusiripala Thendakon. Listening to the two gentlemen who has controversial opinions on the cabinet reshuffle and contrasting opinions on the cabinet reshuffle, I want to know from you, is this a glimmer of hope? Is this the silver lining that we were looking for?
I don't think that this cabinet reshuffle is some kind of a sort of a transient stage, or we have come to some stage of a change, looking forward to a change. But what we are seeing today, Shamir, is not good governance, no. We are seeing weak governance. There's a difference between good governance and weak governance. There is disappointment. There is disillusionment. Then there is a disappearance of expectation. These are the things, dominant characters of the society today. Those who brought about the change are disillusioned. Those who expected very many things to happen have lost hope. And there is general disappointment in the country. So now, changes like this are merely helpful, like stopgaps, to okay, the finance minister has gone, a new finance minister has come, let's hope for the best. Yes, good. Some relief, like we apply balm for a headache, something like that. But what we really need is something more than that.
So you're trying to say that all this is patchwork?
Definitely it is patchwork. What we really need is the two major parties have to come together in a more conscious manner, taking into account the national interest, putting the national interest beyond the party interest, and then deciding on a policy plan which is necessary for the country. That is the need of the day.
Would they be able to strike a national policy, a national plan for the country, given the present circumstances?
If they can't, they must go.
Because we know that the agreement that was reached by the UNP and the SLF, which no one has seen so far, is expiring in August.
Yes. So this is why I say that August is a very important month in this, particularly the August that is coming after the 2 years of their agreement. They are going in for a new agreement. Let the country know what their agreement for the future is. Let the country know what they agree upon for the sake of the people. Let the country know what they are going to declare as their priorities for the people and on behalf of the people.
Thank you very much, Mr. Risripal Thanakon, for joining us this evening as well. Thank you very much, Mr. Govind Dayasri, Senior Attorney at Law, for joining us this evening. It's always a pleasure to have you on board. Thank you very much, Dr. W. Jayawardena, former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, for joining us this evening. And thank you very much, Mr. Risripal Thanakon, for joining us this evening. Thank you very much, Charita. Thank you very much, Chaturanga. Thank you very much, Nadeem, for joining us this evening. I leave you in suspense. I said that I'm going to reveal something about Nadeem, but I'm not going to do it today. I'm going to leave you in suspense for the moment. I'll tell you all about it in a week's time. For the moment, thank you very much for joining us, and it's always a pleasure to have you on board, watching our show and staying connected for nearly 2 hours to know about what's happening around you, as well as the country's future. I leave you tonight with a quote, as I always do. The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. It seems to me, at least for now, all we are left is to dream. Take care and good night.